If you love American music, you're going to love this. Welcome to American Music Backstage, the podcast that takes you where fans rarely get to go, behind the curtain. I'm your host, Kenneth Witt, and I sit down with fans, musicians, artists from across the country to talk about life on the road, the stories behind the songs, and what really happens backstage before the show. From rising stars to seasoned performers, you'll hear the journeys, the struggles, and the moments that made the music. American Music Backstage with me, Kenneth Witt, available wherever you get your podcast. All right, everybody, it's Kenneth Witt with American Music Backstage. I have a special guest here today, somebody that I had found on YouTube a couple years ago and then got to meet him in person from completely different circumstances. But anyway, let me introduce first, then we'll get into it. Mr. Steve Wilson. Steve, tell everybody who you are.
You did. I'm Steve Wilson. There you go.
You're more
producer. trying to play banjo too.
So I know this guy, this young man here is real humble. So I'm gonna give you just his job titles, which will blow you away. So Steve is a musician, songwriter, producer, engineer, singer, banjo player, but the big thing, he is a producer, and he is currently, I don't know if he's finished, we'll get into that, but the reason I met him, he was producing the Creakers for Warner Brothers down at the Soundstage in Nashville, and I got to come out and watch you in action producing the Creakers. Got to watch them in action. It was a really good experience. I was there basically half a day, and I love the way that you work with those guys, Steve. You really, I'm not pretending to know everything a producer does, but you really got a lot out of those guys, and they had a lot of respect for you. But how did you end up with that job?
Well, they did some shows up there in Kentucky, and they worked with the Sam Jam. And Sam Jam, I've been doing quite a few actually. They did like a contest, a band contest, and the winners of that, Pine Castle offered up a few days in the studio to do a EP. It's kind of promotion, for Pine Castle. And so I actually did quite a few different bands, and the Creakers was one of them that won the band competition or whatever it was that Sammy does up there. And they come down, scheduled some time, come down, and we spent 3 days in the studio together, and we cut an EP down there and had a blast. I mean, with them folks, they're just so much fun. You've been around them,
Yeah, yes.
So we had a blast in the studio, and they took off. They're one of their big songs, Tennessee. I mean, it just went crazy. So they said, well, if we're going to do a record, then we better get Steve back. So I said, absolutely, let's do it.
Well, I love it. Now, the project you are currently working on, Steve, is that, and I know there might be things you aren't allowed to tell, but is that almost ready? Is it finished?
Well, it's in the progress. We've got a few songs in the can right now, and we're going back here pretty soon, and we're going to be cutting a few more. So it'll be a series of a few sessions and getting all the music recorded, and then I'll dive into mixing, So.
Now, Steve, kind of tell the listeners, including myself, what, there might be a lot of people listening here. What does a producer actually do?
Well, a producer and an engineer is two different things. I happen to do both sometimes, or sometimes I'm just an engineer. Sometimes I'm just a producer. So the engineering side of it is just running the software, making sure that, setting up microphones, making sure that you capture whatever the band is doing, and you can even get into mixing and mastering and that kind of stuff too. And then when you talk about producing is working with the band and their material, and kind of, if you hear some changes or some things that you can do with the song, you kind of steer it, into those directions. If you hear things that the artists, you can work with them one-on-one, or you can work with them as a whole band and try to pull out of them. I mean, my job, as far as I see it, is to pull out of them the best they have to offer. So not let them just come in and sit behind the microphones and play it like they were playing a show, we'll play it a few times together before I really say anything. I'll find out where their brains are at and what they're thinking. And then we'll kind of go from there. And then I start digging into how far does this well go, you know? Yeah. So I'll sit with each one of them and I'll just start digging to find out how much they've got to offer. And I try to get that out of them. And it's kind of each person is different, and you have to learn the what they respond to, because you don't want to. The one thing you don't want to do as a producer is damper the energy. You never want to get somebody into a place where they're just trying to get through it, because you're not going to get good music that way. They have to enjoy themselves. They have to enjoy what they're doing. And once you can find that place where they're enjoying it and they're starting to enjoy what's coming out of them, then you can dig and dig and dig. And then finally you'll hit a wall and you'll say, okay, we've got everything we need.
So, Steve, I guess you're actually like a music psychiatrist, right? You have to deal with the psychological, not just their talent.
A lot of it is psychological. You have to be able to read the people. And I'll do that during the process of them playing as a band, capturing the first few tracks. I'll find out who they are. Once I talk to them about other things, nothing have to do with music, I can get to know how they respond, what they respond to. Sometimes I even make people mad at me because I get good tracks by making them mad at me.
Yeah.
And it works sometimes, and that's fine, because we'll get mad, then we'll get over it, then we'll move on, and we'll have great music.
I love that, man. And actually, and I know those band members. We're talking about the Creekers, y'all.
Yeah.
And Anna, I know the least, just because I've gotten to know her, and I've had her on my other podcast too. But
sure,
those guys are so different personality wise. Tanner's my cousin.
Yeah.
Alan, I think, is related to my daughters on their mom's side, and which they've known him forever. Those guys are, and then Ashton and Jagger are brothers.
Yeah.
So you got all kinds of dynamics, and I've known Scott for 30 years or better.
Yeah,
the banjo player. So
yeah,
man. Well, you got your work cut out for you.
Oh yeah, it's all different personalities, and you can't talk to them. I mean, it's the same as having friends. If you've got friends, you can't talk to every one of your friends exactly the same way. You have a way that you communicate with this friend. You have a way that you communicate with that friend. I mean, it's just life. It's people. So.
Well, Steve, what I think has to be exciting for you, because it's exciting for me, and you're on the inside. But in your words, tell everybody what makes this band special, because they're different.
They are different. And what makes this band special is that in today's world of music, there's a lot of it that's not real anymore. People have gone to the technical side of things to where every lick is exactly perfect, or every lick is exactly thought out. Everything's learned note for note. YouTube, you've got all these videos and things, so kids are learning fast now. It used to be back in the day when you wanted to learn an instrument, you had to sit with a record player and, try to learn stuff. But now you can go on YouTube and learn something in 5 minutes, note for note. And if you take a musician that knows something note for note and they played it 1,000,000 times, you're not going to hear any energy or excitement in what they play, because they've done it so many times and it's just note for note. It's memory. It's not feeling. Well, there's a few bands out there like this one that play from the heart. They play with feeling, and you're probably not going to hear the same thing twice. You're probably going to hear multiple different versions of the same solo, because they're not going to learn it note for note, and they're not going to sit there and, I played this a 1,000,000 times, so let me play it for you. They're going to get into the song and they're going to play it however they feel it in the moment. And it may go south on them. They may run it right in the dirt. Who cares? You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. What matters is that energy and that feeling of playing from your heart instead of playing from your brain and your knowledge of something you've done 1,000 times.
Steve, that makes so much sense to me. I'm a music nerd, and I get everything, everything I can get my hands on. I'd always heard it like Stevie Ray Vaughan like would never play the same thing twice. You know, like this
Right.
never. And I always heard George Jones would never sing anything like exactly the same way. And those are two people who probably play with more feeling and emotion than any two humans I can think of.
Absolutely. Play from their heart in the moment.
Well, the one thing, this was what really got me excited the day that I came in and watched you producing those guys. And it was also a huge shock to me. You know, I knew those boys were getting ready to sign a record deal and stuff. And, you know, I was keeping in touch with all that, Tim, their manager, and everybody. And,
right.
And you know, some of the kids' parents. But I just assumed, like everything that happens in Nashville, especially a major label like Warner Brothers, that they were all just going to be singing and all be studio musicians.
Right.
And I was pleasantly surprised when I go in there and you're recording these guys playing.
Oh, yeah.
Their own instruments.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
What happened? I mean, that's just not Nashville. That's not the Nashville I know. You know, I figured you'd have, you know, Brett Mason in there killing it on the guitar, you know, or what, you know, Jerry Douglas on the dobro. And, you know, what happened? How did they get to do that?
Well, that's not real. I mean, what took off for them and what was successful for them was themselves. It was the reality of them. So that you could, if you go to one of their shows, you'll get wrapped up in the party. You'll get wrapped up in the excitement. You'll get wrapped up in the live feeling of them just having a blast. And when you see that and you experience that, that's what you want to hear on a record as well. And that's one thing that I always, you know, tell to them is that when we get in the studio, the one thing that we're lacking is we don't have the visual. Like if I go to one of their shows, we have a visual. So that plays to one of the senses. So when you get in a studio and you're recording a record, you lose that sense. You don't have a visual anymore. So what's important to me as a producer is to be able to create a visual by the arrangement of the song, the things that we pull out of the musicians to make the song real, the sound of the record once it's done to where you can hear like they're in the room with you. I want you to be able to put on a set of headphones, close your eyes, and see that band sitting right in front of you. Where a lot of the music today, you can't do that. You put on a pair of headphones, you listen to the music, and it feels like they're in another room somewhere on the other side of a blanket. It's just, it's buried. And I don't like that for this kind of music, you know?
Steve, I love it. You know, I got to listen to some playback
right
that day that I was in there in the studio with you guys, and it blew me away. I thought, man, if people liked what they heard before, when this hits the market, it's going to blow up. So I have to owe credibility to you and what you got out of them. I heard it. I almost felt like, matter of fact, I left the studio that night and I called Tanner's father, who's my cousin, and we grew up together, just like brothers, you know. And I said, man, I cannot believe what I heard. I said, I didn't think I would ever say this. Their vocals were even better. Their musicianship was better. I was like, I don't know what happened, but it's like they walked into, you know, a time. I don't know. It was amazing to me what I heard. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I know you can't wait for this to get out, Steve, but
it's going to be good.
I'm going to make a prediction, Mr. Steve Wilson. When the world hears what you did with this group, and I'm not trying to take away from the band because they're the talent.
Yeah,
they got it. But what you got out of them and pushed them to do, your door is going to be beat down by people wanting you to produce them. I'll make that prediction.
Let's do it.
And mean that sincerely. Yeah, you're ready, right? Well, it's and I hope all you are so successful from this. I want to see producer Steve Wilson walk across the Grammys with an award, you know, as producer.
That'd be great. I'd love to see that band.
That would be great.
If
you're on the Grammys, you please invite me because you remember I said it first.
That's right. We're going together, brother. We're going together.
So all right, you got it. I'll be right there. So here's the next thing. that day that I came there, I was with Jagger and Tanner and Ashton at the National Wild Turkey Federation convention in Opryland Hotel. I went and picked them up at their Airbnb downtown on Music Row there, and took them to the festival. And Tanner was telling me, he was telling me you did it, and he was telling me who you were, because I didn't know if you were producing. I was like, he said, Steve Wilson? I said, yeah. Really? I was like, I didn't know he did that. I said, I was telling the deal I watched on YouTube. Anyway, he's like, Tanner's like, man, you need to, he makes a banjo with the wood rim. And so first thing I'm thinking, Steve, I'm like, oh, come on, man. I'm going to sound like Pete Seeger, like along that banjo. And I was like, a wood rim? And it sounds good, Wood ring. I can't. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you. So you can tell you I'm rusty on my banjo knowledge.
That's right.
And I was like, man, really? He said, and I know Tanner knows sound, right? I mean, he knows acoustic instruments. I mean, he said it. He's like, yeah. And then I talked to you about it anyway. I got interested because I wanted something. I've got a Steve Huber that I've had for years. Mm-hmm. I used to have pre-wars, Steve. I might have told you some of that, but I had some of the real deal.
Right.
If I had that today, I would probably sell and retire, at least for a couple of years.
Right.
Yeah. Crazy. What? I had a 34 Granada, all original. Man. In the original case, original plectrum neck. Frank Neat slapped me a 5-string neck on it, and I was good to go. Yeah. I had another top tension, all original, 1937 RB7.
Oh, Lord.
The same guy, Tim Shearhorn, had a friend in Michigan that bought both banjos for me, one at a time.
Wow.
And can't think that gentleman's name, not sure if he still has them, but that's where they went. And I made a lot of money on them, but I kept them, played them on stage for a long time. But anyway, man, you sent me I asked you to, send me some stuff and let me listen to how they sound. And I could not believe that tone and that sound and that volume was coming from a wood ring. Not a bell bronze ring.
Yeah. It's a different sound. It's not the same as bell bronze, but it's. Yeah. I like it.
I do too. And I'm a traditionalist, like old school. Like even my hunting dogs, man. I don't get into designer colors in my retrievers. I won't get on that soapbox today, but I'm a traditionalist. And so that was like I started to cringe until I heard it, and now I ordered one. So I'll be, and then Steve, this is what I really want to get into as well. You wear so many hats, but man, I had no clue that you were the level of luthier when I saw your work, when I saw the wood inlay that you did. And I mean, beautiful stuff. And I was like, man, how did you get into this? And then you told me that you worked at Gibson.
Yeah.
And tell us about that.
Well, I was a union carpenter, and I was I just got out of the service, and my family's from upstate New York. So I moved back up to upstate New York and got in the carpenters union, and I was working, and they were starting to run out of work. And so I was looking around the country. I always wanted to go down to Nashville. So I called the carpenters union down in Nashville, and they said, oh yeah, come on down. Everybody wants to work's working. So I transferred my card, and went down there. And when I got down there, they didn't have any work. So here I had my whole family in a campground and all my stuff packed up, and they didn't have any work. So I went to work for some guy building decks for a little while. And then this job came open at in the pro shop at the custom art division for Gibson. So I never built a guitar before, whatever, but I love art. I just love, that kind of building and stuff like that. And I was a pattern maker in the Navy, so that's a real fine woodworking trade. So I went down there and I did an interview, and they were really interested in, the pattern making trade and that kind of stuff. And I said, look, you put me in there, there won't be anything I won't be able to do. I said, I promise you that. And they said, all right, fine. So they put me in there, and then I went around and I kind of worked in all the little stations that they have throughout the factory part of it, to learn all the parts and pieces. And once I learned that, I went over into the pro shop and started doing some repairs and some neck replacements and, stuff like that. And then there was a guy sitting next to me that was doing carvings and inlay work and just all kinds of art piece guitars. And that was Bruce Kunkel. And Bruce was just, I've never seen anybody so talented with his craft. He fascinated me. So I got to know him and we started talking and we connected over banjo. He was also a banjo player and we connected over that and we started talking. He started teaching me, the trade. He started teaching me how to do inlay work. We do it with a jeweler's saw. We don't use CNC machines to cut everything out. We draw the patterns up by hand and then cut it all out by hand and then inlay it. And so he taught me to inlay. He taught me the carvings. He taught me, just tons of stuff on this. And once I started building a couple guitars, then they turned me loose as well, like him, to where I could just build art pieces. So I built quite a few art pieces, worked with him on a bunch of art piece stuff and for a bunch of different artists. And it was fascinating. I loved it. And I owe it all to Bruce. He was kind enough to sit with me and take the time to teach me. And I soaked it up like a sponge. I just love it. So. And I think that connects with the music. It connects with playing an instrument. It connects with producing. All of it's connected because for me, it's all art. Every bit of it. You know what I mean?
So Steve, when you went there, when did you become a banjo player?
Well, when I was younger, I got a banjo and I had one of those Scruggs books, and I learned the rolls and I learned
the Bible,
Creek, and the Bible. Exactly. Yeah. And I learned a little bit, but then I put it down and, I got into high school and girls and whatever else, hunting, fishing. That was more important than playing a banjo. So I never touched it again for, all coming up through high school and all that. And then once I got out of high school, I went in the service. And while I was in the service, I decided I'd grab a banjo again and start just goofing off with it. So I got one and I relearned my rolls a little bit. I relearned, a couple of the songs, but it didn't stick. There was nobody to play with. I didn't get around the music, so it didn't stick. And then once I got out of the service, and I moved down to Nashville, this was in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And I was probably 25, 26, somewhere around in there. I went down there and I started going to some of these jam sessions that are going around all around Nashville. And it just fascinated me. I was like, holy cow. So I took my banjo down and I started wanting to play with some of these people. I couldn't play nothing, So people start turning their backs. It's like, well, oh my Lord, I said, what's going on here? So, you're just really bad. Yeah. So I got to know a guy named Dave Talbot, and he played for Larry Cordell at the time. And Dave said, come on over to the house. I'll get you going. So I went over there to his house and he said, all right, play for me. He said, okay, stop playing. He said, first thing you're going to do is anchor your hand. He said, you're going to get your timing and your tone right. I said, okay. So I worked on that for, a couple months. I just straight, like 8 hours, 10 hours a day. I was just rolling, and then finally people started letting me into their jams and it just started to grow. So that's when I actually got into it and started really playing.
Back in those days, Steve, I'm sure if you and I are somewhat alike, you had to go into Gruen Guitar on Broadway when it was back on Broadway, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, many times. Yeah.
And I bet you knew a guy there. There's their banjo specialist named Calvin Miner.
No, I didn't.
Redheaded guy with glasses.
No, I don't recall him.
Well, I friended him, back then in the 90s, and he got to know that I was a banjo buying fool and stuff, and right. He's the reason that I got that Granada came in. He called me, and I just happened to be in Nashville that day because my brothers lived there. My mom lived there at the time. She's a nurse at Vanderbilt, and that's how I got that banjo. But Calvin was always back there. He had glasses, kind of red hair, kept it cut real short.
Yeah, I never had any money to buy a banjo, so it's probably why I didn't meet him.
Well, I never, that's until I started practicing law, I couldn't buy a nice banjo. And then I got the bug, and I didn't have real nice furniture at home, but I had a good banjo,
That's right.
Had my priorities.
When I first started playing down there, I think it was called an Oscar Schmitz. I think I had just a piece of junk, couple $100 banjo. And I went over and I saw Curtis McPeak. And Curtis traded me that in for Alvarez. It was a pretty good banjo. And then once I learned a little bit more and I started playing, out around to all the jams and stuff, then I went back to him again. And then he said, all right, let's upgrade you. So I went to a Scruggs model Gibson. And then when I left Nashville and went back up to New York State again, the Scruggs just wasn't doing it for me. So I went and bought a pre-war TB11 from Turtle Hill Banjo Company, and I built a neck for it, 5-string neck for it, and I left the 1/4-inch brass hoop in, and I didn't cut it for a ring. So that is what spurred me on to start building these banjos, the Guardian, and that's just got a 1/4-inch brass hoop in it, same as the pre-war did. And then that's what spurred Wilson Banjo Company, and that's what spurred the EP that I did for Wilson Banjo Company, and it just went on and on from there.
See, now I'm not familiar with that concept, and I didn't know that's what you were doing.
Yeah. The first one that I did. Are we seeing during this, or is it just voice?
Yes, it's video. Yeah. It'll be on video. Yes, sir.
So this banjo here is called the Guardian. And it's just a 1/4-inch brass hoop. There's no tone ring. And what inspired this one was the TB11 that I had. That's what inspired this. And then, of course, I had to experiment with, different tone rings and different inlay designs. And then since I was in the trades and I was working a lot, doing, mill work for a lot of different companies, I ended up with a stock of mahogany that I was hanging on to, and I had a stock of Brazilian cherry that I was hanging on to. And then, so finally I decided, well, I want to find out, because this Brazilian cherry is really hard and it's got a good resonance to it. So I thought, well, what if I built a rim and then put a Brazilian cherry tone ring on it instead of the 1/4-inch brass hoop, or instead of the, bell bronze or whatever. And I did one just as a prototype, see how it would work, and it was amazing. So now we're building them.
That's something else. When you were out there at Curtis's, I remember went out there 2 or 3 times. His place is in Mount Juliet, right?
Yeah. Yep. I used to stop once a week and see
there was,
him.
For a long time, yeah. Well, I was at his house 2 times, drove out there. I remember he had the McPeak tone ring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And, those actually sounded pretty good. I played banjos with those in it. But what a great guy. Remember he had a big old head full of white hair. He was Silver Fox. Yeah. Gosh, I forgot about that guy.
Yeah.
It's so wild that you and I have not crossed paths. I mean, we were on the same stomping grounds, and I was in that banjo world heavy in the mid 90s until early 2000s, pretty heavy. Yeah.
I left Nashville probably around 2003, I think. 2002, 2003. Somewhere around there is when I left Nashville.
Did Gibson shut down at that time, Steve?
No, it just got to be, when I first got to the custom art division, they were putting out probably 30 guitars a week, and they were high quality, really good guitars. And then by the time I left, it was probably a couple hundred a week, and it just got to be more factory than art for me. You know what I mean? Which I understand, supply, demand, whatever.
Yeah.
The corporate, I understand, big business. But for me, it was about, when I met Bruce and I got into that, it was about art. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about art. And it collided. And weren't able to sit and just concentrate, on just the art. So it wasn't a good fit anymore.
Yeah. Interesting. That says a lot. I appreciate your integrity. So you then moved, is that when you moved to North Carolina?
No, actually what happened was while I was in Nashville, I went to work playing banjo for a guy there, and he had a show in Westminster, South Carolina. And we came over and we played that show. And while I was here, I said, this is home. I said, this is where I'm going to live. And I went back to Nashville, spent a couple more years, whatever, and then moved back up to New York State, raised my kids, ended up getting divorced. Just life happened. I played in the band up there, just a local band, for about 10 years. And then finally, about 11 years after I moved up there, once my kids were all grown up and I was ready, I headed out for South Carolina, and I ended up in Westminster, South Carolina. So that's where I'm at now. So I kept my promise to myself.
Interesting. Steve, it's, what a lot of people don't realize, me included, back then, but I've actually had I've had hunters on here on my Gun Dog podcast from upstate New York, and duck hunters. It's really good duck hunting country. And I actually just did a podcast last week with a guy up there that raises poodle pointers.
Yeah.
In upstate New York. Beautiful place, though, isn't it? It's nothing like the city.
Gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And the fishing up there is amazing. Yeah. That's all I did was fish and hunt. Yeah. Yep.
Now, I know you have the skills. Do you only make banjos? Do you make any other instruments?
I make some electric guitars too, but I don't really get into that. And I only make banjos, just custom order. I don't have I have no machine. They're all built by hand. So it takes me a long time, and it's art. And I don't want to get to where, I've got 20 orders that I've got to try to fill or nothing like that. I like for somebody to appreciate the art. They want one, then we'll discuss it. I'll build one. And that's it. And then I'm not going to talk to anybody about it. And if somebody calls me or somebody sees me, fine, we'll talk about it. But other than that,
when I ordered mine from you, you made that clear, and I told you I wasn't in a hurry.
Yeah. No, that for me is an enjoyment that I don't ever want to not enjoy. So I don't ever want to turn it into work.
I agree.
I have to enjoy it.
Steve, are you hearing me okay on your end?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hearing you good.
Okay. It's weird on your side coming in. There's a delay. It's a little bit of a freeze, but it's still going. It's so weird. Sorry about that. We'll keep trying. So the Creekers is not obviously your first job producing people. And, I know you've produced a bunch of people. One of them that I'm a huge fan of since when I first saw Blue Highway was Sean Lane. What was that like to work with him?
Working with people like Sean Lane and Richard Bennett and, those people, I learned more in the studio with them than they'll ever get from me. That's where it's not really producing so much. It's more just engineering. I do, open up to my ideas or things I might hear or, hey, let's try that again. That wasn't quite there. But with them, it's more just turn them loose, sit back and watch the magic happen because it's insane. And I'll sit and I'll take notes. A lot of what I push on other people might come from things I saw them do, So it's very, very educational to sit in the studio with them for sure. You not hearing me?
So sorry. Yeah, it's like it's freezing and you're uploading. I don't know what. I've never had it do it this
Mine
much.
says,
And it's saying that my strength
uploaded.
is good for a change.
Yeah. Oh, you froze up. You still there?
There he goes. But I had like a minute lapse there.
That's weird.
It has to be this Riverside program. It's showing 91% uploading, but it's freezing. It has to be the program. It's so weird. Okay, now he's moving. Like he would talk and then it would freeze and I couldn't hear anything he said. So we'll have to edit this part out. But anyway, yeah, I missed all that about Sean Lane. You know, I remember I discovered him when Blue Highway came out. Gravel Yard, your first big hit.
Yeah.
And I got to we played some shows there with him. I got to talk to him some. I never really knew him real close, but it was interesting. I knew that I think, was a roommate with Kenny Chesney at East Tennessee State University.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct. And then I do know he also played with Skaggs before his Blue Highway gig. But yeah, what a talent though.
Oh yeah.
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 Now, you'll have to update me on my bluegrass. Is Blue Highway still together?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah,
okay.
They don't play quite as many shows as
now,
they used to.
Rob. Okay. And then I know Rob Ikes was doing a lot of stuff with Trey Hensley. Is he still with Blue Highway or?
No. He's been gone from Blue Highway for quite a while now.
Hey everybody, I'm back. Steve and I are back. This is Kenneth with American Music Backstage. This is part 2. Steve was all good on his end, but I had serious internet troubles here at the ranch. Really don't know what happened. I think it's actually a Riverside problem. It wasn't my internet. I know that. So the Riverside platform has been giving me fits. And I've talked to other podcasters lately. It's had the same problem. But anyway, Steve, when we got cut off a few minutes or a little while ago there, we were talking about Sean Lane. And, I'm a huge fan of his. And, back in my bluegrass days, I saw him, his first shows with Blue Highway and followed him for years.
Oh, absolutely.
What was it like working with him?
Oh, my Lord. It was the first time I got to actually work with him was when, they did, Sean Lane and Richard Bennett did some duet stuff together, and we did a couple albums, EPs, whatever you want to call them. And they were just fantastic. And to get that caliber of musicians in the studio and just get to sit back and watch, the magic happen. And that's what it is. It's magic.
Yes.
They get behind the microphone and they get into their songs. They're great songwriters, both of them. And when they get themselves involved in their music, the whole world just disappears. And all of a sudden, these ideas and these things start coming out and you just sit back and watch and capture it all. You know what I mean? And do your best to capture what they do. You don't have to guide them. You don't have to tell them, hey, try this or try that. No, just sit back and watch. It's going to be an experience you'll never forget. And since that time, I've got a chance to really get to know both of them on a personal level and, talk to them about things other than music and just great people and great musicians. And I've probably learned way more from them than I ever did for them. So it's been a pleasure.
You're right. Those guys are our elite, aren't they? I mean, I met Richard back when he played with Crow. And then I think my brother Brandon played a couple private shows with him, or some shows with him in Lexington, outdoor shows or something. And then, man, when you mentioned Sean Lane, it just one memory comes back to me, seeing him play maybe at the Bijou Theater in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can imagine what that sounded like there.
Oh yeah,
but man, it was there somewhere that he sang Two Coats the gospel song "Two Coats Lay Before Me."
Right.
And man, if you're not a Christian, it'll have you jumping up and becoming one real quick. Listen to that song. I mean, I got chill bumps.
Yeah.
And he's got so many of those. Flat bottom boat. I heard that driving down the road. Out here, Steve, out here in Texas, my only exposure to bluegrass is on satellite radio.
Sure.
I'm more of a hometown radio guy, and there's a few hometown stations, small market stations here that will play it on the weekends.
Right.
But I've really gotten cut off from bluegrass, and some of that's just because of my work and my life and stuff. But
right.
I hadn't heard their new material on that flat bottom boat. I heard that, and I've burnt that thing up. Just they don't do a bad song.
No, there's not a bad one in the bunch. That was, when I first got into, we talked about, when I moved to Nashville, that's kind of when I got into the music scene and started learning to really play banjo and getting out. And that was one of the very first bands that I was introduced to. And of course, the little groups that I played in, we covered some of their stuff. So I had to go learn,
so did we.
Some of Jason's licks, and it was, and they were my heroes. Those guys they were my heroes. So to get a chance down the road, like I have, to get to know them and work with them in the studio, and has been life-changing for me. To take something that's unreachable and it's your heroes, and that's who you just dream of trying to do something similar to what they're doing, and then all of a sudden be working with them. It's amazing.
Yeah. That is, what a talented band. You got Rob Ox, who's, at another level of musicianship. Tim Stafford's like a genius and a guitar player and a composer, and man, and Wayne Taylor's voice. But I've became friends way back with Jason Burleson. He may still remember me, but he was a really humble guy. Just such a nice guy, very humble. But I think our band, Steve, our whole band, our playlist when we were out playing, me and the group I have is North Fork. It was, if you heard Blue Highway Third Time Out and Lonesome River Band, you heard us.
That's right. Right.
But what was crazy is, occasionally we got to play shows that they were at. And I was like, what do we play? Especially if two of the three groups were there. Yeah, we got to come up with some stuff. But heck, we had cover songs anyway. Yeah. But no, it's I wish, I hope that your project with the Creekers, and I believe that it will turn the world onto bluegrass again. Yeah. We go through cycles, right? Alison Krauss kind of turned them on to it 20 years ago with When You Say Nothing at All.
Yeah.
She sang it country. Ricky Skaggs 10, 15 years before that kind of turned the world onto bluegrass some. And we have these cycles, and I hope that Steve Wilson's production with the Creekers is our next big phase of bluegrass again. Make America bluegrass again, right? That's my political campaign. Right.
I would just, me personally, I would love for people to start, realizing that, good music is good music, and it's all an art form, and if you can be inspired or you enjoy to listen to something, it doesn't have to be called bluegrass. It doesn't have to be called Americana. It doesn't have to be called country. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's all art. And if you like it, you like it, and enjoy it, and share it. So hopefully we can do that more.
You're right. And I'm going to finish up on this because I'm afraid my internet's going to screw us. This program's may cut us up again, and I don't hate for it to do that. But one thing I'll add to that, I love what you said. But I can remember in the 90s when we were playing a lot, being at the Festival of Bluegrass in Lexington, and you would see, lack of better words, hippies at the shows, and art students and people playing hacky sack in the parking lot, and then you'd see rednecks like us playing, jamming, and it was like a whole big conglomeration of folks from completely different walks of life, but they were there because of the music, and that's what I loved about it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. Yep. And, it was neat. I'm hoping that this is a revival again. We've had the bluegrass revival, but Newgrass revival, I meant to say. But yeah, I hope that we have a resurgence, and we're already seeing Nashville embrace traditional country. Zach Top and Ella Langley are popular right now. Hopefully that's the trend.
Yeah.
I hopefully by tomorrow or today, the radio stations I'm buying will be filed with the FCC, and I can announce it publicly. But I'm gonna play music, and I'll have music with Steve Wilson's name on it in my studio. That's a promise.
That's cool.
Well, Steve, but before we lose service again on my end, I apologize for this, man. I really am impressed by what I saw in the studio, and the fact that you came out of the Navy with a carpenter background, ended up at Gibson, ended up in Soundstage Nashville producing for Warner Brother Records for a brand new act is quite an accomplishment for you. Says a lot about you. You're one versatile guy, a man of many talents.
I appreciate it. I want to do what I love, and I want to do it with people who love what they do. So, been blessed for sure.
Well, I want to have you, like I said, we said this earlier in the podcast on the first recording. Don't forget me, because when you walk across that Grammy stage, you've already sent me an invitation. When you all have a Grammy produced album, I'm going to be there.
Brother, I got
you. And I will be showing off that Wilson banjo when it comes to my house. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be
and I'm in no hurry.
You're going to have the first one of that.
I don't rush a craftsman. Oh, you need to give me like a special serial number. Like Frank Neat, when I used to buy so much, he used to do so much work for me back in the day, and I never rushed him.
Yeah.
Don't rush a man that's that talented. And I when I call him, I wouldn't even ask about, is my banjo ready? I'd just say, hey, what are you up to for, and then we'd talk about, you want to know about your banjo? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I'll never rush you, man. I know it's going to be worth the wait. But anything coming up this year? Are you still playing shows at all?
I'm not playing with my band, Wilson Banjo Company, on the road anymore. We're still cutting records, but we've taken the band off the road. It just got to be just a lot with everything that I'm doing. So I'm actually on the road now with Ashley Graham and Appalachian Highway, and we're working on a new record now for her, and I'm traveling with her now. So anytime you get a chance, come on out and see Ashley Graham and Appalachian Highway. We're working up some good material for this year, and got some shows started already, so probably get to be a little busier towards the end of this year and
please,
next year.
If you have a show list or a set of your dates or anything, send that to me. I'll promote it on my stuff. If you have like a tour, a show date list or anything, okay.
Just look up Ashley Graham and Appalachian Highway on Facebook or on website. Yep. Yeah, that's where I'll have to go to know where I got to be.
You sound like me. My wife keeps my calendar. I don't schedule anything. I say, Heidi, what am I doing next week?
Hey, you got a show this weekend. Oh, I do?
And I know you do. Good
thanks.
Yeah. Yes. You forgot. Well, hey, this won't be our last podcast, and I hope you get to see you in person again soon. If nothing else, maybe I even get lucky enough to come pick up that banjo in person somehow, but we'll make it work.
Great. That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to have you sit and play it before you take it home.
Everybody, check out Steve Wilson Banjo Company. He custom makes banjos, and his work is absolutely gorgeous. Go and listen to what he makes. It's something else. Also, go out and see him play a show with Ashley Graham this year, and this man has a studio. If you're want to record, I witness what he can do. I promise you will not be dissatisfied. So check out Steve Wilson.